Verovali ili ne, u Danskoj postoji studio koji se bavi samo projektima koji su vezani za učenje i obrazovanje. Christensen & Co. ili kraće CCO Architects su jako posvećeni radu sa krajnjim korisnicima njihovih objekata, najčešće djecom. Imali su priliku da sarađuju na projektima kakav je Carlsberg kampus sa drugim studijima iz te zemlje. A čini se da uvijek pokušavaju stvoriti nešto više kada su u pitanju objekti ove tipologije. Naravno, tu im pomaže i sistem, pa je njihova škola u Narhedenu prva javna škola u Danskoj zasnovana na vještinama učenja 21. vijeka, koja kombinuje nauku, tehnologiju, inženjerstvo, umjetnost i matematiku. Mikkel Sørensen je zadužen za rad na konkursima i idejnim rješenjima. Uživajte.
Hi, Mikkel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
At the beginning, how would you describe the design philosophy behind the CCO Architect Studio?
I think, it's a big question, and I don't think maybe we have a design philosophy, but we are always very focused on the people we're working for, making sure that we remember that we are doing a building for someone and not something for ourselves, and focusing a lot on what they both vision and want, and maybe something that they don't themselves see, but we see as architects. So I think our design philosophy is very centered around the uniqueness of each project, because you cannot replicate one project from another. They all have their own conditions. So either the users or the context, the contextual conditions, or something else that is there. So it's a lot about
Context.
The conditions around the project, that is our design philosophy. And we have this saying that we sometimes we've talked about our resistance in project, or the conditions in projects are design drivers for us. We use those to elevate something.
On a different level.
Yeah.
At what point did CCO become an expert studio for learning and educational buildings?
I think it has been always. It's of course has to do with the founder of the office. Mikkel Christensen was from Henning Larsen and did educational building there. And then we also, I think, the conversation around educational buildings is interesting because as an architect, there's some qualities within it, spatially, architecturally. There's some qualities that you have. Maybe you have a difference in program, different sizes of projects. And then you have this thing that I talked about before, that you always have the connection with the end user. So it's a very rewarding thing to work with. And also, I think the baseline is that you are doing something for the society that you are in. You are making a frame for something that is also for the future. And that's why I called the lecture Trying to Do Common Good, because it's all about something that we are all sharing and part of together. And education is that, I think.
That is something that we can see through your school projects, and I mean that if you want to share the story behind that Noah School and Narheden School as examples of your approach.
They're both competitions that we won. So we are not part of the initial process of developing the brief of both. They're very different in types of the processes that were around them. Nærheden is a very experimental school, and also it's struggling at the moment because they're trying to figure out how to use everything, not just the architecture, but also developing how they want to teach there. And I think they see that it's a long process for them to figure that out, and maybe it will change and change and change. But the whole project is about that. The whole project is about adaptability and being able to work within a frame and not be afraid to use it. NØRS is different because NØRS is maybe it's a capacity school, understood in that sense that it's a place in Copenhagen where there's been a growth of population, so they need, of course, a school. and the space is limited, so you have this very narrow space that you have to then build a school on. It's very it's kind of it's a classic school in some sense, because it's normal classrooms and normal spaces, but of course it has this difference that it's also a space that you can use after hours for the municipality and the neighborhood around. And then there has this atrium in the center, which is always a little bit of a special thing in a school because it can be noisy, but it makes sure that all these pupils that are there, they can see each other and see all the activities across the levels of the school, now that we have to build a tall school or a school on many levels. So yeah, but they're quite different, those two projects, but they have some of the same elements also architecturally, because we have this about that you can always go out on each level, so the space corresponds with the outside, so you have this almost flawless integration with the outside area, which I think is really important for schools. As we just talked about before, the perfect school is on a flat ground, one level, because everybody can just run out. But then that has other problems, of course. So I think that we try to do, and then for both of these schools, actually, it also works as the fire escape. So you actually solve a problem that you would eventually have anyway, by making it accessible spaces. Public spaces, yeah.
That it's always like added value to some project,
Yeah.
I think. Public space,
Yeah.
you are dealing
Yeah.
with that a lot. You told me something about ability to hear for different...
Yeah, that's in Netherlands, is it that the acoustic planner or the acoustic engineer, he told us that when you were smaller kids, they didn't develop the ability to actually sort out sounds. So they need higher concentrated acoustics than the older kids, who can be like you and me. We can sort sounds that we don't want to hear
some kind of distraction
away from us, but the smaller kids cannot do that. So they have a different acoustic needs, so to say, and therefore also in Netherlands, it's basically two towers, and even though they look very similar, they're quite different. Also, the program is different, because one is for the smaller kids and one is for the bigger kids. Yeah.
CCO have some CCO architects have some programs that you call case trip, yeah. Excuse me, study trips.
Yeah.
Around 24 or so. Study trips. Do you have any kind of what's your favorite town that you all been together to visit?
That's a difficult question. We've been on so many study trips.
I saw Porto there and Prague.
We were in Porto. That's a few years ago, and this year we were in Berlin. And I think I've studied in Berlin, so I've been there many times. I don't know what my favorite has been, but we have had some amazing study trips, and it's a big part of the integration and the culture at the studio is to also be able to be together when there's not a project in between us. So we nourish this type of activity very much, and we enjoy doing that. And then I think it's really important to see other people's projects, so you don't get sort of only focus on your own projects, but also see what's happening around the world. Right now we're discussing whether we could, can we actually, argue to fly a lot of people all around Europe to see projects. Is that necessary sustainability wise, or should we try to focus a little bit on what's closer to the office, or maybe go every second year or whatever? But so there's a debate about it, but there's no doubt that it's creating a lot of that you have a common language as the office. You can always refer to that. Also, because you have to understand that in our office we have architects and then we have building technologists, which is two different educations, and we work together on the projects. And therefore it's very good to have a common base to refer to when we develop the projects together. So, and therefore these type of study trips are very good. Then we do study trips where we're only one day away in Denmark, maybe driving with a bus somewhere or something. We do that as well. Yeah.
When we talk about Carlsberg, for me, I know this is Carlsberg, like probably the best beer in the world from Mads Mikkelsen. But for you, I think that is probably something different because you've done some joint venture with 4 other studios, if I'm correct.
For the Carlsberg
University campus capital.
Yeah.
Can you share that experience?
Yeah, this was very interesting because it was it's a long time ago now. But the master plan, I was working on the project. The master plan was a very successful master plan by Entasis, the Danish office, and the brief was that if you will build a city at once, then of course there should be a mix of a lot of studios that were influencing on each other, and to try to sort of replicate what it would say to have a city that would grow over many years.
Yes.
So therefore we got together this group of architects and did this project together, and it was a really great experience, and also super difficult because at that time I was not a partner in the office, so I was just a normal worker, and I remember having all these bosses all of a sudden that I had to relate to, because there was of course many opinions in that project, but so it was a lot of dialogue and a lot of discussion and a lot of that type of work, which was interesting, and really some of the people that I worked with there are still my close friends, and so it was a great experience. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Mikkel, so much. Enjoying your stay in
You're welcome.
Podkast.
Thank you.